Guys, welcome back to another math lesson with HKM Math and Science. In this video, we'll be learning about fractions and percentages and how to convert between the two. So by the end of the lesson, we should know that a percentage can be thought of as a fraction with a denominator of 100. We should also be able to convert a percentage to a fraction in its simplest form, and then be able to convert a fraction to a percentage. So let's pause the video here and take a couple of minutes to write these down. Alright, so let's just go through a couple of key ideas to start us off. So the first one is we can write percentages as fractions by changing the percentage sign to a denominator of 100. So this just means, like in this case here for 37%, we'll get rid of that percentage sign and simply write it as a denominator, just add a denominator of 100. So we'll get 37 out of 100 as the fraction. So that's pretty much how we convert percentages to fractions. And in this case, you can't make it any simpler, but if you can simplify it, we'll always be simplifying it to its simplest form. Alright, the next thing we need to know is how to convert fractions to percentages through our knowledge of equivalent fractions. So in this case here, we have 1 over 4. We're going to make that denominator into 100. We do this by multiplying both the denominator and the numerator by 25, and that gives us 25 over 100. Or remember, anything out of 100 is just the percentage. So 25 out of 100 will just give us 25%. However, in some fractions, we won't be able to make the denominator a 100. So in this case, for the bottom, we have 3 over 8. No matter what we multiply the 8 by, that won't become 100 if we're multiplying by a whole number. So in this case, we multiply the fraction by 100. So to convert any fraction to a percentage, simply just multiply by 100. So we have 3 over 8 times 100. That written both as a fraction will give you 3 over 8 times 100 over 1. So we'll multiply these fractions together. Let's simplify it first. They can both divide it by 2, so that becomes 4, and that becomes 50. That can be divided by 2 once more, and that becomes 25, and that becomes 2. So 3 times 25 gives us 75 here, and 2 times 1 gives us 2. So our fraction is 75 over 2. So we'll make that into a mixed number. 2 goes into 75 37 times with the remainder of 1, which is why we get 37.5%. Or if you wanted to write that as a decimal, that will be the same as 37.5%. This will all make a bit more sense once we go through the example questions in the next few slides. Alright, so these are just a few common percentages and the equivalent fractions. And it's pretty useful to know these, so just write these down in your books and try and remember these ones because they'll help save some time in the future. Alright, so let's start off by expressing percentages as fractions or mixed numbers in their simplest form. So remember, a percentage is just something out of 100. So in this case, we have 17%, that's just 17 out of 100. 17 is a prime number, so it can't be simplified any further. So 17% will just be 17 out of 100 as a fraction. Now this next one, 36%, that's also simply just 36 out of 100 as a fraction, but this time we can divide both the top and the bottom by a common number. So the first number that comes to my mind is 2. We'll divide the top by 2 and the bottom by 2. So 36 divided by 2, that gives us 18. So the top one becomes 18. And that one also divide 100 by 2, and that gives us 50. So we have 18 over 50. They can both be divided by 2 once again. Let's just do that. That gives us 9 over 25. Now, they can no longer be divided by a common number, so our final answer as a fraction is simply 9 out of 25. And this last one here, we have 140%. So once again, that's just 140 out of 100. And let's start off by making that into a mixed number. So right now it's an improper fraction. We need to make that into a proper fraction. So 100 goes into 140 once with the remainder of 40, and the denominator stays the same. Now let's simplify this fraction. We can start this off by dividing both the top and the bottom by 10. So we just get rid of 1 0. Now we can divide both the top and the bottom by 2. That gives us 2. And that gives us 5. So our final answer will be 1 2/5. Alright, now that we've gone through a few examples, just pause the video here and have a go at these ones, and just unpause when you're ready to go through them with me. Alright, so this first one we have 39%. So once again, that's just out of 100, so 39 out of 100. This number is a prime number, so this fraction cannot be simplified any further, so that is the final answer. Give yourself a tick if you got that one correct. Alright, this next one, 42%, that's also just 42 out of 100. And this time they're both even numbers, so they can start off by dividing both the top and the bottom by 2. So that gives us 21 up the top if you divide 42 by 2 and 50 at the bottom. So that gives us a value of 21 over 50. Now this cannot be simplified any further because the top and the bottom can't be divided by a common number. Alright, now let's move on to the last one here. We have 220%. Once again, that's 220 out of 100, and then we need to make this into a proper fraction or a mixed number. So 100 goes into 220 twice. Let's start off by making it a mixed number, and it gives us a remainder of 20, and the denominator stays the same. Now the first step will be to divide both the numerator and the denominator by 10. So let's just cross out a 0, and that gives us 2 and 2/10. Now they can both be divided by 2, so that gives us 1 up the top and 5 down the bottom. So our final answer becomes 2 and 1/5. Alright, now pause the video here. These are pretty similar to the ones before. And have a go at these and just unpause them when you've done them and are ready to go through them with me. Alright, so this first one on the left, this one should be pretty simple. It's 9 out of 100. Remember, percentage is just something out of 100, so that is simply 9%. The one on the right, we need to make the denominator 100. So we do this by multiplying that by 5, and we also need to multiply the numerator by 5. So that gives us 55 out of 100, and that just gives us 55%. Give yourself a tick if you got these two correct. Alright, so now let's move on to our last method of converting fractions to percentages. So this was that third dot point here. We're going to multiply the fraction by 100. So let's have a go at this first question on the left. So 3 over 8 times 100 over 1. And remember, when multiplying fractions, always check if you can simplify first to make your lives a little bit easier. So in this case, you can, in fraction multiplication, you can always simplify only vertically and diagonally. In this case, both the 8 and the 100 can be divided by 2 because they're both even numbers. That gives us 50 over here and 4 over here. Once again, they're still even numbers, so you can divide them by 2 once more. That gives you 2 and 25. So our new numbers are 3 over 2 times 25 over 1. Now let's have a go at multiplying this. 25 times 3, I'll just do it with you over here. That gives us 15, carry the 1, 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1, that gives you 7. So we have 75 over 2 times 1, that gives us 2. Now we divide 75 by 2. That goes into 7 3 times with the remainder of 1. And it goes into 15 7 times with the remainder of 1 once again. So that means our big number as a mixed fraction is 37. Remainder goes up into the numerator, and the denominator stays the same. So we have 37.5%. Or as a decimal, that can be written as 37.5%. Now in this next case, we have 3 and 3/5. Let's do the same thing. We need to multiply it by 100 over 1. And remember, when you're multiplying fractions, you always need to make it into an improper fraction first. So let's have a go at doing this. 3 times 5, that gives you 15, plus 8, that gives you 18 over 5, times 100 over 1. Always check if you can simplify the fraction. We can divide both the 5 and the 100 by 5. That gives you 20 over here and 1 down here. So now we have 18 over 1 times 20 over 1. So let's figure this one out. 20 times 18, that gives you 0. 2 times 8 is 16. Cross that out. We don't need that anymore. Add a 0. 1 times 0 is 0, and 1 times 2 is 2. So that gives us a value of 300. So we have 300 up the top and 1 down the bottom. So our final answer would simply be 300%. Alright, now let's have a go at the question on the right. We have 3 and 3/5. So we're going to multiply that once again by 100 over 1. And remember, when we're multiplying fractions, we always need to change a mixed number into an improper fraction. So we do this by multiplying the big number by the denominator. That gives us 15, plus the numerator, that's 18. So we have 18 over 5 times 100 over 1. And next step is to always check if you can simplify the fraction. So in this case, you can simplify it diagonally. Both the 5 and the 100 can be divided by 5. So that gives us 20 over here and 1 over here. Now let's multiply these two together. We have 20 times 18. Let's give that a go. 8 times 0 is 0. 8 times 2 is 16. We don't need the 8 anymore, so cross that out. Add a 0. 1 times 0 is 0, and 1 times 2 is 2. So our answer is 360. So 18 times 20 was 360 over 1 times 1. That gives us 1. So our final answer is simply 360%. Give yourself a tick if you got these two correct. Once again, now that we've gone through a couple of questions, it's your turn. Let's pause the video here and have a go at these yourself. Alright, so let's start off with this left question here, 7 over 40. So once again, using the method of multiplying by 100. So let's do that. 100 as a fraction is just 100 over 1. Always check if you can simplify first. First thing that comes to my mind is dividing both that number and that number by 10. That's just cancelling out 1, 0. Now they can both be divided by 2 since they're an even number. That gives us 5 over here and 2 down here. So we have 7 times 5, or 7 over 2, sorry, times 5 over 1. And that gives us 35 over 2. Now we divide 35 by 2. Goes into 3, 1 to the remainder of 1. Goes into 15 7 times the remainder of 1. So we have 17.5%, or 17.5%. Either one's fine. If you got that correct, just give yourself a tick. And this last one on the right, we have 2 1/4. So once again, just multiply by 100 over 1. Remember to always convert that into an improper fraction. That gives us 9 over 4, because 2 times 4 is 8, plus 1 is 9, times 100 over 1. And both these numbers can be divided by 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 100 divided by 4 is 25. And now we have 9 over 1 times 25 over 1. Let's have a go at that. I'll just do 25 times 9 up here. 5 times 9 is 45. 9 times 2 is 18, plus 4 is 22. So we have 225 over 1. And that just equals, I'll write it over here because I'm out of space, I don't know why I wrote a 3, but it's meant to be 225%. Give yourself a tick if you got that one correct as well. Alright, so now that brings us to the end of this lesson. By now you guys should all know that we can write percentages as fractions by changing the sign to a denominator of 100. We can also convert fractions to percentages using our knowledge of equivalent fractions. And lastly, to convert any fraction to a percentage, just simply multiply it by 100. Once again, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys all back online.
Boom. 2 + 2 is 4, -1, that's 3, quick maths.